he'd known back in boys who belonged to noble families, the old aristocracy that traced its lineage back to the kings before the Sumerian flood. He never had the benefit of tutors, sages, and astrologers who drilled the young lords about Ur's great history, how it had risen as the first great civilization on earth, fed by the miracle of irrigation when much of Mesopotamia was still desert and shrub, or how the men from Sumer were the first to develop a written script, the first to invent the wheel to propel a wagon, the first to create brick to build a towering ziggurat and draft laws to rule justly over the people. What he did know is what his father had taught him, that for centuries, traders had come from lands far beyond the Euphrates to trade their obsidian, copper, and carnelian for the harvest bounty of Sumer's fields. How this wealth had made the city strong and rich, and how it had spawned a class of men that the world had never seen before: scientists, engineers, astronomers, artists, builders. And then, inevitably, his father would turn to tales of Sumer's gods. He still remembered the story of Tiamat, the ocean goddess whose evil schemes had forced the other gods to rally around a young deity named Marduk. They begged Marduk to get rid of her, and Marduk complied. Sometimes in his dreams, Abram still recited the lilting verses of the great creation epic, the story of Marduk creating the earth and the heavens. He constructed stations for the great gods, fixing their astral likeness as constellations. The moon he caused to shine, the night to him entrusting. He appointed him a creature of the night to signify the days. Thou shalt have luminous horns to signify 6 days. And then, on the 7th day, Marduk created something new, a savage, a beast walking on 2 legs. How should he call this creature? Man shall be his name, the epic said, and he shall be charged with the service of the gods. To service the gods, that's what his father drilled into him and his brothers, Nahor and Haran. Whatever happened to humanity, Tira said, was the will of the gods. That's why the people should serve them and obey them in all that they did. And then, one day, his brother Haran died. The family was devastated. They grieved not only for Haran, but also for his young family, including his newborn son, Lot. Tira, too, wept over his son's grave, but he never questioned the reason for his passing. It was the will of the gods, and nothing more needed to be said. But worse was to come. They lived in dangerous and unsettled times. The territory of was slowly being torn asunder by the pressure of invaders, particularly the powerful forces of Amorite tribes. Some of the traders who had visited Amorite territory told blood-curdling tales of violence and chaos, of untended fields and streets running with blood. It was whispered that the Amorites never buried their dead, leaving them to serve as carrion. But Tira was phlegmatic. It was all the will of the gods, he said, even if the caravan trade that had sustained Ur's Tamkaru, its merchant class, for so long was now draining away. In the end, they faced the inevitable. With fewer caravans making the long trek along the Euphrates, Ur's great prosperity was no more. Many people in the city had already left. Some had moved to the city of Larsa, Ur's principal rival. Others had settled in a new and rapidly growing city farther north, known as Babylon. Tira tried to hold out as long as possible. He had large land holdings around the city, the yields of which he used to barter with traders from regions as far as Sapar, Ashur, and Mari. But when the news arrived that Amorite forces were less than 100 leagues from the city itself, he knew the time had come. By the time the Amorite army broke through the last Sumerian defensive line, Tira and his family were already far to the north. They had fled with the few possessions that their donkeys and their servants could carry, heading northeast toward Haran. He was called Abram then, the oldest of Tira's sons.